Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release ball of our memories, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Bow your head.
And we're here to help you navigate all those landmines littered down memory lane.
Now, folks, we are in for a treat today. This movie, if you ever listen to a lot of our podcasts, you probably find yourself like me wondering, wow, this Justin guy, he seems to not like certain movies, but really doesn't get emotional about it. He doesn't seem to have much invested in it. And here I am waiting for, after I do one of my rants, waiting for this guy to maybe, eviscerate it with me, but he keeps it. He keeps it, his cards close to the vest. His heart rate stays pretty much the same level. This movie, you've already seen the title of the podcast. This movie may get a little rise out of him, I'm guessing. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm typically I'm the model of restraint, really, Mike. But Dad's not angry; he's just disappointed, Mike, and that's. But I do have the ability to kind of lose my cool. I mean,
okay.
You don't want to cross me. I mean, it's well known, and I've spoken to a lot of managers in my day, so. But all right, monkeys, Mike, monkeys,
yes,
you gotta love them. So we're back on another Monday night. It's working out pretty well these Monday nights, Mike. Are you even ready for some football? Or
I don't think you're ready for this football.
Let me tell you something about football. I catch a lot of grief because I'm a soccer fan, especially down here where football is a religion, and I just don't understand. Football is so terrible. I tried going back to it. I was a fan before, and I tried going back to it. And again, maybe this is the grumpy part of the grumpy nostalgia, Mike. But it seems to me that football is just it's kind of like dwindled down to just an excuse to drink for 4 to 6 hours Thursday through Monday in this country.
Or buy a new TV for a certain big Sunday.
Yeah, or eat yourself out of your fat pants.
Yeah.
The game takes 4 hours. And in that 4 hours, there's about 9 minutes of action that's documented. So, I mean, oh well. And they don't even know they don't even know how to play the game anymore. I mean, what's the first thing you do when they score a touchdown? Hey, did that count? Every play has to be reviewed.
I know.
What my favorite part of it, Mike, is
you're getting a good warm up before this movie. I like it. You got lathered up. It's like Michael Jordan when he comes out at halftime. He's already lathered up, getting ready to score 50 points.
Yeah. I took this personally, but no, it's like the irony to me is that they take a timeout to review a call that the officials of the game should know already for a game that's supposed to have rules in place. So not only do they know how to play the game, the people they entrust to enforce the game they don't trust, and then they stop the action to review the call, and then they advertise on it. So yeah, okay.
I'm guessing that those squares bug you, man. Do they bug you?
Those squares really bug me. All right, so speaking of bugging me, we're going to talk about Planet of the Apes this week, as Mike alluded to. Let's reel it back in. What the world really needs is an angry white male podcast about sports. There's not enough of that.
Oh, we could. Yeah, you think it's hard being an English football fan? Try being a German football. Let's have a podcast about that one.
999. We've been talking about this movie in passing. We've made instances to it, references on the last podcast, and we always thought it was out of our purview with the release date being 2001. But we felt, this movie, we could make an exception to break the rules a little bit. It's the newest movie we reviewed so far going into the 21st century, Mike, 2001. But as you'll see, there's probable cause to talk about this movie, and we'll just kind of get right to it. So this was released on July 27th, 2001, just before the world changed. It was directed by Tim Burton, who we've talked about just recently on some of his other movies. It was written by this guy named William Broyles, who's actually a really good screenwriter. He wrote Apollo 13 and Castaway, and wrote a lot of episodes of China Beach, Mike, with show favorite
Danny Delaney.
Dana Delaney, yeah. Uh, his story was too good in the fact that it would have cost too much money to make it. So the producers, who will they'll be the recurring villains in this theme. Producers brought in Lawrence Connor to rewrite the script so it would be cheaper. And Lawrence is famous for writing such wonderful movies as The Beverly Hillbillies, The Many Saints of Newark, and Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, Mike.
Oh, the Sun Guy. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, Nuclear Man. So, I mean, you can see this. So this guy's kind of like a fixer for very cheap producers. Tell by the quality of some of his work how this movie kind of ended up where it was. With all the cost-saving measures that were put into place, it ultimately still ended up coming in at $100 million budget, Mike.
Wow.
Yeah, this is in 2001 dollars, so this was they put a lot of money into this, more than they wanted to, and there's some Schadenfreude here. I guess we'll get to that as we go. I learned a lot about myself watching this movie, Mike.
I remember.
I learned the level of vomit and bile can raise really high, and I can still tamp it down.
Because you're
in certain social settings.
Nice.
But speaking of vomit and bile, well, let's talk about some of the cast, Mike. Why don't you showcase some of the people that got to perform in this movie?
Well, this is the first time, Justin, that I literally have a blank page here. I feel like Taylor Swift, I got a blank slate. There's a few names to mention. Let's see. Let's go with the human cast. We have Mark Wahlberg, which I think after watching this last night again, I realize he's really not a good actor. I mean,
think?
Yeah, really. I know in Boogie Nights he got some accolades, and he did pretty well. He does good as like a side character. I think of like The Departed. He's great in that movie. But other than that, you think of like The Happening or
not a leading man.
No Pain, No Gain. I mean, it's just I don't know. It's an acquired taste, maybe. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see
I think it's a question about range. I don't know.
Yeah,
a certain range.
Maybe so. Chris Christopherson's briefly in this movie is.
Oh God.
Why I don't know.
It was almost like senior abuse.
Yeah, it was just wasted too. I mean,
He's so tired looking.
It could have been anybody else. Like it's like he had the same hair he had in Blade, and it was just like he just walked over from the other set, I guess. Then you had a couple of these. This one lady, Estella Warren, actor / model, emphasis on model because acting, and then for I guess the main cast is in makeup most of the time. We have all the different apes like the Paul Giamatti, a Yale University grad who should be better than this. I know he was in that stupid movie where he's blue and he was don't even want to mention that one. But this is John Adams, for God's sake. What are you doing in this movie? You had David Warner, classic sci-fi guy who, he's been in so many good flicks. This is a good character in this one. Again, wasted on the makeup, but,
Yeah.
So was Samantha's dad in Bewitched in the original Planet of the Apes. I digress. And then we have Tim Roth, who he was great in Reservoir Dogs, and he has a really spotty career. And I forgive him for this. He was actually, it looked like he was really method acting this movie. The way he acted, like I guess he was supposed to be a either a bonobo or a chimp. I don't know, but the way he acted, it was really it's almost like he studied. He sat at a zoo and just watched apes for a while because he was the only one who really seemed a character and not just the surface makeup.
He acted the way I felt when I watched it.
Yeah. The part where he throws like a little tantrum and swings around. And he's like, "Sorry, I'm not angry at you." It's like, oh, okay. And then I thought, well, you must be angry at either Tim Burton or the producer. Yeah. And then you had Michael Clark Duncan, who, God rest his soul. He's another one who should be better off being in like The Green Mile and being in better flicks than this.
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter,
there we go.
Your little flame from the last podcast. How'd you like her now, Justin? How do you like that? How do you like them apples?
Keep going.
I can't think of a movie where the director had both of his exes star in the same movie. I mean, it must be another example out there, but for Tim Burton have her and then have Lisa Marie, another former model, have both of them in the same movie. And I think around the same time he was getting ready to do his changeover with one of them. But it's like, really, dude? Otho from Beetlejuice was in this movie briefly as a really pompous orangutan. And, There was one other thing I remembered. I think I actually wrote this part down. Yeah, there was an idiot kid, of course, who's a load in this movie. Ignore him. And then, for some reason, the humans in this movie talk really good English. Why? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll get into that. And
so do the apes, conveniently.
Yeah. And we have I don't think he was in the credits, but we have a one of those "God, why were you in this movie?" Charlton Heston appearances, where why, just why. So
this made his tombstone cameo look like Oscar worthy.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I forgot where he was like he was held in of like contraptions and stuff. In this movie, all I get to see is just his flabby bicep, But
well, we'll get to all that. So thank you, Mike. That's really good.
Oh wait, I got one more. I just remembered. We're slowly. We got one cast member left from Mad About You. We've had Helen Hunt in Twister. We had Paul Reiser in Aliens. We had Hank Azaria in Godzilla. This time we have Anne Ramsey as a throwaway crew member who gets killed off, but she wasn't Mad About You. Yeah. Now all we have left is John Pankow. So I look forward to maybe To Live and Die in L.A., maybe.
Okay, all right. Well, put it on the list.
Thank you.
The goal of this podcast, when I started, was to capture the film work of the Mad About You cast. So we're almost done. We can almost end it. So thank you, Mike. Just a couple notes about that cast and the film itself. So this had been in development since 1988, and it had kind of been a rotisserie of people interested in the project, including such notables as Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson, Roland Emmerich, who we've covered a few of his movies before. Seems like a movie he might like. The closest it got prior to this iteration was Oliver Stone had got attached, and Arnold was in the runnings to be the main character, and then James Cameron was set to produce, but they couldn't get enough financing, and James Cameron ultimately left to go do Titanic, to some success, and then it ultimately got handed off to Tim Burton.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why Johnny Depp wasn't the lead in this movie.
Yeah, well, he was considered for the role. Spielberg was also in the running for a while, but he left to go do AI. Everybody involved in making this movie ended up hating it, and a lot of that came from the top. The studio insisted on a July release, and they really rushed this thing, and you can really see its fingerprints are all over this movie, from the quota system casting to the broad plot to the cheap sets. I mean, you could tell a lot of this movie was shot on a studio. It was an 80-day shoot. It was not a very pleasant experience for most people, especially Tim Burton. Mark Wahlberg was not the original choice for this, as you might imagine.
No way.
Typical actors around that time were also considered Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Leonardo DiCaprio there. Wahlberg actually turned down the role of Linus in Ocean 11 to take this role. So, what do you know?
Was that the Matt Damon role?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. That Tim Roth character you mentioned, that Gary Oldman was considered for that. I think he might have been a good choice, and also Johnny Depp. I like the fact that Michael Clarke Duncan's name was Attar, Mike. Very similar to another one of our heroes, Attor.
Yes. Some of the names, that's another thing. Was Paul Giamatti was Limbo?
Yeah.
And explain this to me. You know the Planet of the Apes lore better. I know in the later trilogy they have the ape named Caesar, who I think is referenced in one of the other original Planet of the Apes movies with Ricardo Montalban, maybe. In this one they have an ape that's named, or the chimp that's named Pericles. What's with the Greek and Roman mythology or using names like that? It's really weird to me.
Lack of creativity, and we'll kind of get there.
All right, sorry about that.
All right, so this was set in the year 2029, Mike, which is not too far off, so we have this to look forward to.
Oh, wow.
It was the 10th biggest box office draw in the year 2001.
What?
Yeah, only 10, top 10. News of note about 2001, Mike.
Was it the year we made contact?
No, it was not the year we made contact. That was 2010, okay. Mike.
Right.
Shows we were watching included Friends, CSI, and SpongeBob SquarePants was the big hit back then. Music we were listening to in 2001, Mike, the number one song at the time this was recorded was Usher, the song You Remind Me. With the clever thing here, they used the letter U instead of the word you.
No way.
That was really neat, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking down the list.
Just so y'all know, Prince did that 20 years earlier. So hey,
Yes, he did. I looked down the list on the Pop 40 charts, and it's just
featuring
somebody featuring somebody else.
nailed it.
Yeah, that was really all there was. The hot tickets for holidays that year were the PlayStation 2, and everybody had an America Online subscription. Confirming the myth that women don't care about pretty boys and the sense of humor is more important, Drew Barrymore married Tom Green. Confirming the myth that that's not really true. They divorced about 6 months later. And the average price of a movie ticket was $5.66.
Oh, yeah, that's too high. That's too high for grumpy nostalgia, folks.
This was a few months before 9/11, and we don't want to bring the whole show down talking about that, but I thought there was something interesting about that time period. If you remember when that happened, air traffic controllers had to shut down all flights. And the guy, and of course his name escapes me, but the guy who was in charge that day to shut down all the flights, that was his first day on the job.
Oh, geez.
September 11th, 2001. So that guy is my personal hero. So, all right, well, we've kind of commiserated, and we were already way too far into the podcast and not be talking about the movie. So, Mike, if you're ready.
Hesitantly ready, yes.
Well, okay, so we're going to give it a shot, guys. You know, we didn't like this movie the first time. No spoiler here. So you might have not ascertained that by now.
You know what? After Congo, this will be the last movie we do about apes for a while. So.
No more apes. But the point of the show is to go back and see where our heads were at the time and see if anything has changed. So this movie was produced by 1,000 monkeys on 1,000 typewriters, Mike. Did you know that? And it ended up being the cinematic equivalent of a stub toe, but we're going to go through it. So the most popular movie candies at that time, Mike, were Junior Mints and Milk Duds. So I've got one each. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, hit the button, Mike. So we open up in space, of course, with this clinky-conky jungle music going on. And we're forced to sit through almost 4 minutes of opening credits where there's nothing happening. It's just text on the screen. So, yeah, that's no way to get you jacked up for a movie than that. But when they finally get around to starting the movie, we got to focus in on our hero, Mark Wahlberg. I think his name was Leo, right?
I think Leo? There's so few names that are actually used in this movie.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go with Marky Mark because, who cares about
and the Funky Fun Bunch.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, he had a no loincloth policy for this movie. He didn't want to. That's why he wears that dirty shirt the whole movie, because he refused to. He didn't want people to associate
his underwear modeling
body.
days. Yeah,
that's exactly it. So no narcissism there whatsoever. Nope. But we open up with him kind of torturing a chimpanzee in a flight simulator. Poor little Pericles is sitting in the flight simulator, and he initiates some sort of pattern to make the ship crash, and he freaks out. So we're off to a good start already, Mike.
Yes.
So they're on this ship called the Oberon, and they're kind of traveling through space, and they come up across this electromagnetic storm. And, of course, they decide they need to investigate it. So what do, Mike? They send the chimp. Not a drone or a robot. They send the chimp. And apparently there's a whole collective group of chimpanzees. What's the collective noun for chimpanzees, Mike? Do you know that one?
Flamboyance. No. No. A clouder. No, that's cats. A herd. No.
Mike, that would be a cartload of chimpanzees. A cartload of chimpanzees. But anyway, there's a cartload of these poor suckers encaged in the Oberon. So they send poor little Pericles off in his little ship to investigate the electromagnetic storm. And after about 10 seconds, he loses contact, and they think he's dead. Not even 10 seconds, right? And they all write him off.
It's done.
And Mark's got a attachment to him, so he breaks protocol because he's a rogue hero and gets in a spaceship and goes after his monkey, he calls him. So he's a primatologist, but he calls his buddy a monkey.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. And that's a recurring theme for some reason. They thought that was funny in this movie. So he gets kind of sucked into the electromagnetic cloud, and he kind of draws him in. It's kind of a wormhole thing. And he sees the dials and the clocks all kind of spinning out of control. And like, here we go. Time jump, whatever. And he lands on this planet, lands into the water, and kind of swims out. And within 8 seconds, so some of the indigenous humans are kind of running from something, and he kind of gets caught up in the caught up in the crowd. A bunch of loincloth humans are running from something. And they're conveniently diverse humans, too, that speak English, which I thought was great. But it turns out that they're all getting hunted, right?
You know, Estella Warren has a great set of teeth.
That's what I hear. I love that set of teeth on her. So they end up being captured by this slave trader played by Paul Giamatti, who I think is, if there are some redeeming parts of this movie, he's certainly one of them. I liked his performance here at least. He seemed like he was the only one that was in on the joke.
Yeah, I guess so. He realized this was a bad movie. Maybe he was playing 4D chess on us and realized how stupid it was.
He's kind of like Tim Curry was in Congo. It's like, okay, this is crap. I know it, but hey, I'm getting paid and you're not. So. So they all get captured, and Michael Clark Duncan plays a guerrilla general, and he smacks Marky Mark, knocks him about 20 feet, Mike.
Oh yeah, because he touches. He says he does the line.
Thank you for getting us there. So, without even drawing blood, Marky kind of comes to his senses and grabs his foot, and then he utters the line, "Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty human." And this is where the rage kicks in, Mike, because I have a special affinity for the original movie, and this is just lazy screenwriting, and I always picture the screenwriter looking into the fourth wall and putting his little finger in his dimple and smiling.
Oh
yeah, how cute I am!
Look at that.
Anyway, yeah, so so they get carted off to Apes City, and this is the first scene where another thing that really kind of set me off is, did you notice how dark this movie was? Not in tone, but in actual lumens. You can't see anything in this movie, and
well, that's a Tim Burton. I think that's a Tim Burton.
I think
a lot of his stuff.
Yeah.
You think back about the original Batman movie and
Hey, if I have to watch this, can I at least see? It won the Glaucoma Award for Best Picture.
I know. I love the movie Sleepy Hollow, but I don't think there's one scene in daylight and everything's in the dark, which adds to the suspense and the horror of it. But this, I think it covers up things too. And my goodness, the city, you look at it from a distance, is huge, but once they start filming inside of it, you're like in the Gilligan's Island village. I mean, it's like 6 or 7 huts, And they go through and they go through all of them when they run. They do the little run through. It's like that's it. There's the scale of it seems so tiny, compared to what it should have been.
So as I mentioned, they get captured and they're kind of carted off into the Ape City, sent up to market, and on their way in, we get introduced to Helena Bonham Carter, who plays Ari, who's kind of a human sympathizer, and she shows special interest in Mark for some reason, and she buys him and Estella Warren to get him to save them from a life of slavery. And she ends up being someone of some renown. She's a senator's daughter, so she's got a little weight, and she turns them into a butler and a maid. The horror. The horror.
I know. It's it's not even a wash down scene where they get shot down for a hose or something. Come on, man.
Yeah. So the first night they're hosting a dinner party, and you get introduced to all the main characters, and we get introduced to the scenery chewing Tim Roth playing General Thane, and all the other principal monkeys. And then, of course, at the end of the night, they put all the humans in the cage, and then, Marky Mark picks the lock of the cage with essentially a spatula, proving another movie trope that any lock is pickable,
any lock
in any situation. And this sets off this massive surge. And to your point, Mike, they kind of run through the entire set in about 3 minutes. The movie at this point just kind of dissolves into a series of chase scenes. They're chasing the humans from this area to this area. At the end of the day,
the line between seriousness and camp comedy gets crossed so many times. You
can't decide what it.
Yeah, it just lose track of what their tone is.
Well, again, I think that's studio notes. I think they said, hey, you need a kid, you need a pretty girl, you need an old guy, you need a black guy, you need an Asian guy. You got to put a kid in there, and they got to be funny. And you're too serious here. This just stinks of producers' notes to the story. Yeah. But anyway, they're getting chased around Ape City, and they kind of circle back around to Ari, and they
Come on, man, push through.
Okay.
Did you notice that all the gorillas sound like Worf from Star Trek: The Next Generation?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. What was the weird voices?
I have no idea.
So they circle back around to Ari, and he tries to convince her of the true story of his origins, and he says, "Come back to the crash site for me. I've got some interesting things you might want to see that might prove some of her theories about the status of humans in their society, and it might help with her cause as well." So they go back to the crash site, and he dives down there and pulls some of his kit out, and he pulls out a homing beacon, which is still powered up, and it's alluding to the fact that the Oberon is somewhere near, and he gets an opportunity to get reunited with his crew, and so he takes another adventure, and all the while they pick up a lot of extra baggage here along the way, like half the staff, a lot of the humans, and even Paul Giamatti gets picked up at this point. So there's about 20 people now in the cast that you're supposed to care of and keep track of. And meanwhile, back at Ape City, when the humans escape, that's not a good thing, and he convinces Ari's father, the senator, General Thane does, to declare martial law so he can wipe out all the humans.
Ape law.
Yeah, and before he heads out, they kind of shoehorn a scene in to get Charlton Heston in there.
Oh yeah,
again as another
just so he
cheeky reference.
Spit out another damn line and another damn member berry from the original movie, and damn him all to hell. I swear, I can't believe he appeared in this movie. Sorry.
So he rips off another line from the original movie to be funny, but he's also here to distribute guns, Mike. The only guns in the movie were handed out by Charlton Heston. So who else are you going to? I mean, he's perfect for that. I mean, that's perfect casting, at least in this case.
I guess, but he's also saying how bad they were and how they represent the worst of humanity. It's like, okay,
yeah.
How much were you paid to do this and say that line?
So anyway, Marky Mark and his now big funky bunch are heading back to. They cross the Forbidden Zone, Mike, and this is where the beacon is shining. And apparently, it's when they come up the beacon source, it's the wreck of the Oberon. It's just it's.
Oh my gosh! No way.
Yeah.
Oh wow! This should have been like in our twist from last week. Oh no way! Wait. Was the Oberon, did it look like it had been there a while?
Yes, thousands of years.
Oh, okay.
And it powered right up.
No way!
Can you believe that?
Well, why? Oh, okay.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Sorry.
Let's not spoil it. This is a very well-crafted movie. I don't want to get out of order.
Yep.
So at the end of the movie, they kind of, they're exploring the Oberon, looking for anything that has, any kind of relevance to the plot at this point. And Mark's upset, obviously, that there's no one there to meet him. It turns out that this Oberon has also been dubbed the Forbidden Zone, or the Holy Land of the Apes. They call it Kalima because there's a sign in there. I mentioned the cartload of chimpanzees. There's a sign on the wall at the beginning of the movie that says "Caution, live animals," and they take the CA out of caution and the LI out of live and AMA out of animals, and they thought the sign meant it was Kalima. And the apes hold this as a holy ground where the origin of the apes came from.
You mean the sign? You mean the sign that gets you just rub it slightly and all the dirt washes away off of it and changes?
Yeah, thousands of years and
wow.
Yeah, all the humans have heard word of this other human that is defying the apes. Yeah,
how did they find out? As soon as I saw these people show up from everywhere, I was like, there's no radios. Who spread the word? There's nobody from their group that left. How do these people know? Did they just have this intuition to show up at this place that they didn't even know existed?
Mike, we talked about because Congo.
Okay, thank you. There we go. Right.
So the humans have kind of congregated around this ship, and then of course the apes eventually kind of come, and there's what essentially amounts to like a Gunga Din scene. Mike, there's going to be this huge battle at the end where the apes have come to wipe out the humans.
It was at that moment that I realized how bad Mark Wahlberg was as an actor. His little win one for the Gipper speech he does, where he says, "This is the day you fight back against the ape." Oh my, the passion! Oh my God, you could just the passion and just the energy you could feel oozing from the screen.
Yeah, he could tell he's not interested in being in this movie in any scene. And I remember watching some post-production promotional material about this, and I remember one of the one of the producers talked about how proud he was that he said we wanted to take this as a gladiator type story, that on that scale.
Oh wow!
where he wanted, yeah. So, yeah, it didn't work. He kind of becomes Spartacus at least, and rallies all the tribes to fight against the apes, and it really kind of ends in this kind of snore-inducing final battle. Where all the extra baggage characters get killed off, and we're supposed to feel bad. The little kid has a horse fall on him.
Of course, you knew that was going to happen. That load.
He convinces everybody he could fight, and then of course, what does he do? He runs out, and typical kid screws everything up.
And the house human guy dies too.
Yeah, just to make you feel bad. And what I liked here is that the humans even stood a chance against the apes. Like even modern chimpanzees that are roughly 3.5, 4 foot tall can murder you without even thinking about it. They can maul you to death in seconds. but Estella Warren is like throwing haymakers at him.
Hey, as long as she doesn't talk.
Yeah, and you can get smacked by a gorilla and get knocked back 40 feet, and you don't even bleed or get a bruise. I didn't,
What was her name in the movie? I don't think I heard it mentioned once. Maybe it was mentioned. It was. I
think it was. Was it Blonde Girl?
Blondie.
Dana was her name.
Dana. Okay, she was no Nova. Yeah. So, but yeah.
As they say in Scotland, Dana like it.
Boo. I don't even.
Yeah. So as they're fighting, dumb Pericles, the monkey from the original scene, kind of shows up in his little scooter, and they misinterpret that as
It's like the Pee Wee Herman movie. Oh, yo!
He stole his bike back from Francis and showed up. But anyway, all the apes misconstrue that as the coming of their ape lord, which they call Semos, which Mike pointed out is an anagram for Moses. Very clever there. But that's enough to make all 2,000 people stop fighting to watch a chimpanzee land in a ship. And then they're kind of forced with the reconciliation that everything they've ever believed in their religion is a lie. Just like instantly.
Yep.
Just wins them over.
Hundreds of years of ideology is just poof, poof. There it goes.
Yeah, because, Lancelot Link shows up in his little flying machine.
It was perfect because they had sand dunes. Couldn't you picture like the chimps from what was what was the name of the apes that come riding around the little four-wheelers? It's like that from that 70s cartoon show.
Like the Banana Splits?
Banana Splits, yes. That'd been great if they came riding over.
I would have taken that at this point because the movie had just gone so far off the rail. I didn't know what I was watching most of the time.
Right.
The first time I saw it, and we'll kind of get to that in our review. So anyway, just to wrap it up, because we could literally go on for days. General Thane does not accept the reality of the situation, so he goes in with his gun that Chuck gave him. He gets kind of coerced into this flight capsule under behind the bulletproof glass, and he tries to shoot the gun, and he can't because he's trapped in there, and they just kind of leave him in there. So that was it. So pieces met, right? And then so Mark says he needs to go back home, and he hands over Pericles to Dana and Ari to take care of, and he says his goodbye, and of course he kisses Dana like they developed this love story, Mike, one for the ages, right?
It is. Didn't you love the little jealous looks? They always, they had to like establish it with these like little shots of her every time he said something to Ari, the Helena Bottom.
Yeah, they really shoehorned that weird interspecies love triangle.
She had that same look on her face every time, like, little pout. I can't believe those two could be together.
We get it. Mark's sexy among all species. We get it. Whatever. So anyway, he gets back in his little ship and wants to fly home. So he gets in, goes back through the electromagnetic cloud, and lands on the National Mall in Washington D.C. Mike, and good news, he's home, right?
Uh-oh.
But wait. As he goes up to the Lincoln Monument, he sees that Lincoln is an ape. And he gets arrested by all these apes in Chicago PD uniforms. And he's that confused look on his face was my same look on my face when that scene hit. And that's the end of the movie. That was supposed to be the big twist, reimagined twist for this movie, Mike. I just say boo.
Yeah,
it's probably not worth it, but boo. I did read that one of the original versions of the scene was that he was supposed to go back to the Shea Stadium, and it would be during a Mets game, and all the ball players were gorillas. I thought that might be kind of cool, but
yeah,
I don't think it would have saved the movie. But anyway, that's it. That's the big twist ending. Is he goes back to Earth, and
it was set up for a sequel, wasn't it? Look at that. It was all ready.
It sure was. Oh, we forgot to mention that all the collective, the cartload of chimpanzees in the Oberon were the original species that populated the Earth with these apes. By the way, they took over the crew and became super smart monkeys and populated this planet. But see that again, this movie has to be consumed in footnote form because the narrative itself could not support any of this. But
I would love to have the screenwriter here so we can interview him. I got questions.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to his manager.
It'd be like talking to Rick Sloan after.
Yeah. Hey, Lawrence Connor, I want to speak to your supervisor.
Yep. I got questions.
Yeah.
Why? Okay.
All right, so,
I got okay. Go ahead. Okay. You tell me. Let's find out how the movie did overall.
All right. So let's get to awards and accolades, Mike. So this had a $68 million opening weekend, which is not bad. Ended up doing $180 million, but with a $100 million budget, it probably did not cover the cost because it had a huge promotional campaign too. It did do relatively well overseas. I think the worldwide box office was somewhere in the north of $360 million. So I guess it was profitable.
Wow. Holy crap!
Did not win any awards, although the special effects makeup by Rick Baker here is all jokes aside, the only salvageable part of this movie is just the amazing makeup. These apes were amazing, and given the different, he had Asian actors as well, and he was able to make that makeup really unique with all the actors, diverse crew, diverse actors. It was really amazing.
And it wasn't his fault that the apes could like Super Mario jump and just fly around. That was kind of
yeah. I mean, there was no CGI here, but there was a lot of wire rigging. And of course, I think that's probably why I was shot in the dark. On any signs where there's any light, you can see gaffing wire helping these monkeys kind of. But I did like the attempt.
Monkeys, Justin.
Sorry, but at least it wasn't the 1976 Kong that's Rick Baker did that just walked upright all the time. Walked like my grandpa. So it did manage some awards, Mike, and that's from our friends at MTV. It was nominated. Tim Roth was nominated for Best Villain, but he ended up losing to Denzel Washington in Training Day. And my favorite category for MTV was the Best Cameo, Mike. Charlton Heston was given a nomination. Can you imagine if Charlton Heston had been nominated and won and had to go to the MTV Movie Awards? But he ended up getting beat out by Snoop Dogg. Mike, Snoop Dogg in Training Day won that. Beating David Bowie and Dustin Diamond. Really hotly. That was probably the most competitive category that year for MTV.
Dustin Diamond.
Screech in the movie Made.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess they ran out of people to consider for a cameo.
Jeez. I want to drop down the talent there.
What's Screech up to? Let's see what he was in,
God rest his soul, by the way.
God rest his soul. R.I.P. Screech. So the original cast had to sign on, as part of their contract, had to sign on for sequels, so they're all kind of contractually obligated to it. But critical reception and our poor box office really just kind of killed it. It did help lead to a reboot, a real reboot, not a reimagining, but a reboot of the series. The CGI heavy motion capture trilogy with Andy Serkis. Those are really good, actually, and they're kind of hyper realistic, and those are good stories. And they kind of salvaged and rebuilt the franchise. I think there's actually a fourth one coming out either this year or early next year, but we'll be looking forward to that. Just so long as Marky Mark's nowhere near, I'll be good. So that's kind of how the movie stacked up, Mike. So this is the part where we do our grumpy meter, where we talk about the movie the first time we saw it and how we feel about it the next time. So I'm going to let you go first because I'm choking on bile.
Yeah,
I need a break.
I'll let you. I'll let you rest your sphincter and your vocal cords. But God, I do have a question though. Why was okay? Let's pretend you're the screenwriter.
Okay.
Why, and how was General Thade, the Lincoln character, there in Washington in whatever year he landed in on the real Earth? How is that possible? The other planet was established to have multiple moons. You could see them in the sky. And for some godforsaken reason, there were people on this planet, which I don't know where they came from. They obviously didn't come from the Oberon. That was where all the apes came from. So how? What?
It's easy because they transported to a time where continuity and plot holes don't exist.
I mean, it's so glaring. I don't know if it was as obvious the first time we saw this, but watching it this time, I was like, wait, that doesn't. I mean, the ending where he lands in Washington and there are apes everywhere. It was so obviously tacked on. Right? Or is that originally how it was supposed to end? You think? Well, I know you said the Shea Stadium thing, but it just why have Thade as Lincoln? That was so.
I don't know.
There was no need for that.
I think anything they wanted to do that reeked of originality was probably considered too risky by the producers, and they just wanted to.
Yeah.
It was just easier to call back, the movie from the '60s.
Right, and that leads me into what my real review would be is how it's kind of like when we're watching Cape Fear a couple podcasts ago. It's like you see a movie like that and you watch the original and you go, wow, the original was really kind of a slimmed down, but it told its story effectively by not, I don't know, it didn't need all the extra baggage in it, but both versions worked well because the extra baggage kind of added layers to the character in the Martin Scorsese version, and it works. This particular version of Planet of the Apes compared to the 68 version doesn't work because it's one of those movies that like has to tell you everything. It was kind of a palate cleanser. I watched the first 15 minutes of the original last night after watching this piece of garbage. And the whole exposition is set up in the first 3 or 4 minutes of the movie. It's just Charlton Heston talking to a recorder in the spaceship before he goes, into the little cryogenic sleep chamber. And he says, I wonder if mankind will still be as, evil to each other as they were back when we took off 700 years ago, And there you go. There's your setup. That's all you need. Everything else from there is you can kind of figure out, until you get to the twist at the very end, and it bookends itself perfectly. This movie, like I say, it has the same affliction a lot of movies today have, where it's like the, show don't tell, and it's so literal that, there's politics in it, and there's all the conflict between, wow, you're treating apes like haha, look, they're treating apes like we treat apes in our time, or they're treating humans like we treat apes. It's like, why? And it was just a lot of that kind of back and forth that wasn't in the first movie. It didn't need to be. You can kind of, I mean, how we treat apes. You don't need to constantly bang us over the head with us. And it kind of made me think that like, it's funny how this movie's 20 years older than us today, and it still seems like it's kind of got some of the same problems of movies around us now. Where it's like a movie that it's a movie that, I guess the best way to sum it up is it's a movie that tells you directly what to think, and when it should provide a story for you to think about. And I think that's what the original Planet of the Apes kind of does. Is it's like here's the story, you can kind of figure out apes, humans, blah blah blah. This one is like, oh look, it's just a lot of just unnecessary like stuff like that. It's just it beats you over the head. Why the humans are talking. I mean, that's one of the greatest reveals in the original movie. Is all of a sudden they find out Charlton Heston can talk. It's like, oh my god, like it freaks them all. It freaks all the apes out, and it's a really great reveal. And then they have to even gag them. And I guess the original had more of like there's more meat to it as far as. Finding out where did humans come, the humans can't be like this. There's no such thing as a intelligent human. And to finalize it, I would say if it was a standalone movie without the 60s and 70s trilogy or what were there, 4 or 5 of them?
Well, 5 of them,
Yeah, if it was a standalone movie that existed in its own vacuum and my for me at least, be a little more better. But to have a movie that I don't understand about remakes, it's like you could have taken that original movie and just kept that same plot. You could have added a couple little extra storylines, kind of like, like I talked about Cape Fear did, add some layers to the characters. But why just twist it so badly and just, it's so stupid. I mean, like the plot holes just aside, just like I say, it doesn't know what it wants, and the tone of it's terrible. Yeah, I give it half a star. It's worse than Congo. Do not watch this.
Okay.
I don't know how bad. I don't know how it did so much money. I really don't. When you told me those numbers, it just boggles my mind. When you said it was a top 10 movie for 2001, I got
a theory.
I wasn't groaning because there wasn't a lot of movies. I was groaning because it actually made it in the top 10. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Well, I've agonized. Thank you, Mike. I've agonized for this movie for years, and
I think we watched together, right? Because I remember.
Yeah.
You were visibly disappointed when we got out of the theater.
Yeah. The crux of the argument is, am I being fair to this movie by measuring it up against this classic science fiction movie? And I've after watching it again the second time, I think, yeah, they knew the risks when they took the job here. They had a fan base of people, that had grown up with these movies, and they chose to go this route on a lot of these things. So the first time I saw it, as we've alluded to, I was just disappointed and angry and bored, which is the worst thing you can be in a movie. And I never really wanted to revisit it, and I just kind of held a grudge for all these years. So having this podcast is interesting because I get the chance to go make myself watch these things again. And on the rewatch, I got even more angry, even more disappointed, even more bored. And there's a couple reasons, and I think the dichotomy between this and the first movie, the things stand out even more because when I was a kid watching Planet of the Apes, for me as a 7-8-year-old kid, that was it. That was the top. I mean, before Star Wars came in, that was just to see. I remember seeing those things coming up on late night television and just being so excited. I mean, I usually fell asleep before the apes even showed up, but those things were so part of my childhood and let's say nostalgic, Mike. As I've watched the original movie over the years, and as a smarter person, there's tones about racism and religion and societal caste systems, and there's all kinds of context in Planet of the Apes, and it's a satire of a lot of socio ideologies. It's all captured in the way that movie was made. The original was a rated G movie for an adult audience.
Yeah.
And this movie was a rated PG-13 movie for a rated G audience. I mean, you could be a 7-year-old boy and watch this movie and get the same value out of it as someone like us watching this movie. They took the thinking out of it. And
it's like in the first movie. How they lobotomized as astronauts, and this movie actually lobotomized the audience
right away. One of the things about the original movie, and I'll get off this crutch here in a minute, but the end scene where this alpha male gun toting cigar chomping main character is on a beach, just completely broken and crushed and in despair that his
humans were exactly what he thought they were. Yeah.
It was symbolic of the atomic age and the fears of the Russians, and that's what happened. And to see that guy just broken down on the beach, that one scene has more emotion than the 2 hours and 10 minutes of this movie. And they at no point, and to rob that twist, the original intent of that twist to be monetized for a future sequel. I mean, I considered this movie kind of like Patient Zero for similarly infected movies to come. It was only made to get you to see another movie poorly made. It was trimmed of all they made an investment to make a movie and then just figured out ways to not spend money on it to make it good. If Cameron had this movie would be good because he would spare no expense to make a good movie and damn the consequences. But these guys,
he would do a little bit
a
little more nuanced about the time travel aspect, where this one was like, oh wow, he already knew as soon as he crash landed he was in the future. And it was
These
like,
guys
oh,
only made budget cuts to increase their margin. They didn't do it because they made millions of dollars off this movie, but they brought in a screenwriter to make the cost lower. They considered hiring Robert Rodriguez because they knew he directed cheap movies. I mean, they did all this stuff to rob us of the experience just to get our buck. They shot it dark,
yep.
just like all these other movies that have kind of come since then. So
I got another question.
yeah.
Why would a captain of a space vessel, let's say, risk his whole vehicle and his crew on chasing down one astronaut who decided to go rogue?
Why would they send the monkey for him to?
Exactly. That's the whole point. If you're going to send a monkey to do a man's job, then why send your whole crew to go?
You can send a drone in there. Okay, we got to stop, Mike.
Right.
So as you can tell, your co-hosts were very disappointed. So we thought that would segue nicely into our segment for this week of "You Just Made the List, Pal."
Oh, yes.
We want to talk about our top 3 disappointing movies, and I'm assuming that there's going to be some Sharesies on here, Mike. So
I don't think so. No.
Really? Okay.
If you copy, I got 5 written down here. If you mention one of these, I'll be gobsmacked, as they say.
Well, I flipped a coin, Mike, and you won, so you get to go first. Just like in football.
Just like football. Coin flip is sponsored by Bush.
Yeah. Another dumb rule. The home team gives the ball to the visiting team.
Okay.
Just go.
All right, let it go, man.
Sorry.
All right. Ground rules for this list for me were too many times source material is ignored. And when source material is ignored, such as, let's say, a previous movie perhaps, or a book, a true history story maybe, or a movie that was done before the other movie that wasn't quite the way it was, or perhaps even a TV show that was once loved and was put onto a silver screen and stinks. Okay. So my first one of these is a book. That book would be Battlefield Earth, which, make of it what you will. Of course, it was written by, his name escapes me now, so that's really good.
L. Ron Hubbard, Mike.
Thank you. Who, for all his faults, he was a fantastic sci-fi writer. That's how he kind of got his start in the biz.
I love that book.
It's a fantastic book. It's like Waterworld, Omega Man, Planet of the Apes, all in one, and it creates its own universe. To me, I never read Dune, but it has its own universe like Dune, and it creates
epic scale too.
Epic scale.
Yeah.
It would be so hard to transfer this to a one movie, let's say. Perhaps one movie produced by a megalomaniac named John Travolta. This movie was revolting. It was so bad. And to think what they did to a book of course, the book, like Dune, is almost impossible to put to the screen. It would have to take 2 or 3 movies, perhaps a trilogy or quadrilogy. But the movie's terrible. It was just so disappointing. I remember I purposely didn't read any reviews, which I probably should have in this case, because it was voted one of the worst movies of all time. And it was a flop at the theater, and it deservedly was so. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So that's my first one.
Coming up next on Grumpy Nostalgia, Battlefield Earth.
No, please, God, no.
All right. My first choice isn't really a real revelation, but it's Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Like, forget the Shia LaBeouf, forget everything. This movie was just, it stinks. To take Indiana Jones, how can you screw it up? You got Steven Spielberg, how can you screw it up? You know how you screw it up? You follow the model that Planet of the Apes set. You get as many characters as you can. You just do a bunch of pretty stuff. You're self-referential. You go back to the old movies and look how cute you are. Look, we talked about the old movie. We talked about the old movie, how cute we are. But that movie, the horrible CGI, John Hurt in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Me and Mike kept running joke that, something that's useless or added on drivel, we refer to as John Hurt in King Crystal Skull. Because he's just in that movie as a tourist. He's just around to...
That's right. He's a tourist.
But I remember watching that, and of course the meme is the nuke the fridge, right? So he gets in a refrigerator and survives an atomic bomb. But it just wasn't fun. It wasn't exciting. It didn't capture any of the things the previous 3 movies had done so well. And I just remember sitting and watching and thinking, like, wow, why did I even like Indiana Jones in the first place? That's when you know it's really bad. So I won't even look at I won't even look at this movie. The title screen, if I see it, yeah. So that's my first one.
What about the next one coming out soon with him going through New York?
I'm willing to give that a shot. I'm willing to give that
Okay.
a shot because Spielberg's not in it, and they may try to do something different. But yeah, that's my first one, Mike.
All right. Well, my second one is an example, kind of a hybrid. It's an example of a book and history not being used properly. That movie is Troy.
Oh boy.
A story I love. The Iliad is about the 9 or 10 year struggle of the Greeks fighting the Persians and trying to capture the city of Troy. And the movie kind of veered away from it because of a certain actor who was in Troy named Brad Pitt, playing Achilles, who in the real story is of the Iliad actually dies off very early. And he's kind of a weak. He's killed by Ajax. So this movie, somehow he lived through that, and he kind of lived through most of the battles, and he's the sex symbol, so, they used him for that. And other parts of the story were centered more around him than Paris and the rest of the Helen of Troy kind of. It was a stupid character. It was a bad movie. I was very disappointed. I wanted him to follow at least some history or book on that, and
yeah,
I was let down immensely.
Yeah, that's me too, Mike. I'm right there with you. In fact, my second one, I'm just going to segue right into it, was Clash of the Titans from 2010.
Nice.
Again, the original, albeit with its stop motion Ray Harryhausen special effects, just a classic movie, great movie. Followed the mythology.
Yeah.
Followed the mythology. But what did this one do? It reshot the movie to co-opt the 3D fame that Avatar set. So they reshot the movie to put more scenes in that were 3D. A bland main character that decides to take on like 65, 70 extra characters in the story, paints around the edges of the actual mythology of that Greek story.
Yeah.
And just at the end of the day, was not very fun.
Nope.
And what I like best, all the actors in it said they hated it. Yet they all signed up for Wrath of the Titans a couple years later and did the exact same thing, even worse. So, boo to them, and boo to Clash of the Titans. That's my second one on my list, Mike.
That's funny. That one is the parallels with Planet of the Apes are very similar.
Yeah. I'm telling you,
oh my gosh, yeah, it's really weird.
Patient Zero, man.
Gosh, crazy.
Typhoid Mary.
Is one of your choices, Justin, possibly a trilogy?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then my third one is, let me go through an honorable mention here. One of my honorable mentions is following my script is a bad sequel. So you have an original movie, and then the second one, you go excited thinking, oh my God, this one's going to be funny. If it's like the last comedy I just saw, well, of course I got fooled by Caddyshack 2, Meatballs 2, you name a comedy, the sequel stinks. This was... The one that disappointed me the most, though, was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Ooh,
so that's your honorable mention for that. That was terrible. But my worst all-timer, drumroll please, and it was one of my favorite TV shows, probably second to Sanford and Son. This was my favorite show of all time. The Wild Wild West. Yeah, you think?
Oh yeah,
this movie is right for the picking. So this would be a great flick. This would be, have Artemis Gordon and Jim West and the Caboose. What a great story, huh? No. The movie was, I don't know, I forgot, it wasn't Robert Zemeckis, but it was some wacky director that took hold of this thing and just played it for all the camp it could be played for, and it was terrible. Oh my gosh.
Was it Kenneth Branagh?
Yeah, he was supposed to be Miguelito Lovelace, who's like the the bad guy in the TV show too, and he appears probably in a dozen episodes, but he's a little munchkin guy, He's totally not quite the ex-Civil War general villain that whatever the hell.
Yeah,
Branagh was just being this, and
Barry Sonnenfeld was the director.
There you go. No wonder Will Smith was in it. But yeah, it was just so. Kevin Kline. Oh no, I guess this one might have hurt me more than Battlefield Earth. Now that I'm thinking about it, but that's my third one. So I can't.
Kevin should have declined.
Yeah.
See what I did there, Mike? that line of dialogue would have been in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
I had a couple.
Can we all just get along?
No. I had a couple honorable mentions too, Mike. Prometheus is always up there with horrible prequel to Alien. Just not good at all.
Nope.
Man of Steel was particularly one that hurt me too. How do you make Superman depressing and joyless? They figured out a way. I could go so far as to say AI was in there for me too. The Steven Spielberg.
That's a snoozer.
That, on the surface, that sounded really interesting and really entertaining, and then 7 hours later, it's like, okay, can we just stop now? I get it. But mine's going to be, again, it's going to hurt a little for me too. And my last one is The Rise of Skywalker, Mike. Star Wars 9.
Oh, that's not the trilogy I was looking for. See what I did there?
I did. It's great. But I'm a Star Wars guy, and I'll still watch this movie, and I own it, and I'll watch it 500 times, and I won't let it get past me. But what I didn't like about here is this movie was the end result of this last sequel trilogy that kind of lost its way, and all the filmmakers, the great filmmakers involved here, all these guys are really good filmmakers, but they were so obsessed again with putting something out there. They were writing the script as they were building the sets. They had no idea how the first and the third movie would end. They handed it off. It's not a baton race. Okay, now you do this movie and run around the track, and then hand me the baton, and I'll do the third movie. There has to be a story arc, and they've all admitted that they didn't have one. Culminating with my favorite line in movie history: "Somehow Palpatine returned."
I thought they fly now. That's my favorite.
Well, yeah, but the Dark Lord of the Sith, who's the seminal character, the villain of 9 movies, comes back from the dead to take out the New Order of the Jedi, and the reason they figured out to justify that to the plot is somehow
he's returned.
Shut up with your somehow. Write 5 pages and figure it out, you lazy creeps. So
there we go. There's another podcast.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, all right.
See, I thought the trilogy I thought you were going for was The Hobbit.
No, see, I don't rag on those as much. I enjoy those.
Yeah. The Lord of the Rings trilogy, then you watch The Hobbit. It is kind of a letdown in a way, but
if The Hobbit came out before The Lord of the Rings, no one would say a word.
True, exactly. It's like this Planet of the Apes movie thing I've heard about that. Yeah. Everybody's talking about Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah. Well, I'm thoroughly exhausted, but we're going to have to wrap it up, Mike. So this was a lot of fun, and again, if you did disagree with our take on Planet of the Apes, you're probably right. We don't really know what we're doing. We have an amateur podcast, and we just make each other laugh. So that's it. So if you're interested in our show, you can check us out on our Instagram page at Grumpy Nostalgia. And if you'd like to send us an email outlining in great detail how wrong we are on all of our assertions and observations, you can do that at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. So Mike, that's going to wrap it up. Anything else you want to add before we head out of here?
Why does Johnny not care?
All right, I'm going to close. I'm going to quote my beloved co-host too. In the show notes for this, I wrote in the margins a text I got from Mike earlier in the week. POTA is a POS. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
It's so stupid.